Under the bright lights of Brussels, cameras clicked as French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met on the sidelines of the EU leaders' summit. The room was filled with the quiet hum of translators, aides, and photographers. Both men shook hands firmly, a gesture that captured not just diplomacy, but the weight of war and endurance behind it. Their meeting came at a critical juncture. The war in Ukraine, now stretching into its fourth year, continues to grind on. Russia's missile strikes have intensified again, targeting Ukraine's energy grid ahead of another harsh winter. In this context, Macron's talks with Zelensky were not ceremonial, they were strategic. Zelensky arrived in Brussels carrying two urgent priorities: securing more air defense systems and ensuring long-term European financial backing. France, under Macron's leadership, has been one of Kyiv's more cautious supporters, often balancing strong rhetoric with calls for diplomatic engagement. But today, Macron appeared more assertive. At the start of the meeting, Macron reiterated France's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. His words were measured, yet resolute. He emphasized that Europe cannot afford fatigue and that Ukraine's defense is Europe's defense. Zelensky nodded, his expression serious. The Ukrainian leader knows that sustaining Western unity is as vital as any weapon on the battlefield. The discussion quickly turned to military aid. Zelensky pressed for additional long-range missiles and air defense systems, particularly the French-made SAMP/T batteries. Macron reaffirmed that France would continue to supply Ukraine with weapons as long as necessary, highlighting ongoing deliveries of Caesar howitzers and SCALP cruise missiles. Behind the cameras, aides took notes rapidly, aware that every commitment mattered. As photographers captured the moment, panning left and right across the table, the two leaders leaned closer. Macron, gesturing with his hands, spoke about the broader European security framework that could emerge after the war. Zelensky listened attentively, occasionally interjecting to stress the need for guarantees, not just promises. The talks also delved into Ukraine's path toward EU membership. Zelensky used this opportunity to push for a faster track, arguing that Ukraine had already proven its European identity through sacrifice. Macron, while supportive, reiterated that accession must follow due process, though he hinted that Brussels could explore interim steps to deepen integration. Outside the closed-door meeting, journalists waited for a joint statement. The corridors of the EU Council buzzed with speculation about whether France would announce new bilateral defense commitments. When the doors finally opened, Zelensky and Macron walked out side by side, their demeanor calm but firm. In his short address to the press, Macron praised Ukraine's resilience and reaffirmed that France stands shoulder to shoulder with Kyiv. He called for unity among EU leaders to sustain both financial and military aid. "We must not allow doubt to divide us," Macron said, adding that France was working closely with Germany and Poland to coordinate new defense packages under the Weimar Triangle format. Zelensky followed with a brief but emotional statement. "Every day of our defense is a day of Europe's defense," he said. "We are grateful to France for standing with us, for understanding that this is not just about Ukraine's survival, but about peace in Europe." As the press cameras zoomed out, the two leaders shared a final handshake. The symbolism was unmistakable, a partnership built on necessity, not convenience. Behind the scenes, officials from both sides continued discussions about France's possible role in training Ukrainian pilots and engineers for modern European weapon systems. Macron's team has been advocating for greater European autonomy in defense, a concept that resonates differently in Kyiv, where every promise must translate into tangible help on the ground. The meeting in Brussels also served as a signal to other EU leaders gathering for the summit. The bloc remains divided over long-term funding for Ukraine, with some countries pushing for stricter oversight of aid spending. Macron's visible engagement with Zelensky was, in part, a message. Paris is still committed, and France wants to lead. As the session wrapped up, both delegations exited the hall. Zelensky moved toward a separate round of talks with European Council President Antonio Costa, while Macron returned to the plenary session where leaders debated the next tranche of the EU's support package. The atmosphere in Brussels carried both tension and determination. The French and Ukrainian flags stood side by side in the press room, a quiet reminder of how far this alliance had come since the first days of the invasion, when Kyiv faced near isolation and European capitals hesitated to send arms. Today, those same capitals are debating how to rebuild Ukraine after the war and how to reshape Europe's security order in the process. Macron's government has framed its support not merely as aid, but as investment in continental stability. His advisers describe Ukraine as the shield of Europe. For Zelensky, every handshake, every headline is part of a broader campaign to keep Ukraine at the top of Europe's agenda and to ensure that Western resolve does not fade with time. In Brussels, he once again made that case directly to one of Europe's most influential voices. The cameras captured a final wide shot, Macron, Zelensky and their teams rising from the table. The moment might have lasted seconds, but it reflected hours of diplomacy and months of struggle. As the lights dimmed and the press was ushered out, the message from both leaders remained clear. The partnership between France and Ukraine is not symbolic. It is a strategic cornerstone of Europe's future. This meeting, though brief, underscored a larger truth that amid war, diplomacy remains the most powerful weapon, and in Brussels, that weapon was on full display.
Temporisme. Merci, messieurs. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.